Hello, this is Jeff Stana from Americans in France, and I'm going to talk about the results of the 2012 legislative elections in France and after. The elections took place on June 10th and 17th of 2012. Alright, let's look at the results. The PS, which is the Party Socialist or the Socialist Party, plus their allies, got about 302 seats. If you add on the other left-wing parties, which would include the Greens, you can say there are 331, which would be the parliamentary left. The UMP, which is the center-right party in France, the PS is kind of center-left or left, plus their allies got 209 seats, and if you add on the other right-wing parliamentary parties, it comes to about 229. A majority in France from the parliament is 287 seats. There are 577 in total. So you have these are some of the other parties, and this is the results in terms of seat, not in percentage of the votes. The Greens got 17%, which is the best, I think, the best they've ever done, and that's mostly because even though they only got about 5% of the popular vote, because they had an agreement with the PS not to run common candidates into some districts so that they would be able to win and not split the left vote. The NC is Nouveau Centre. It's a center party, mostly aligned though with the right wing UMP. It is. It's always been aligned. It's historically in France, the center has been aligned with the right, except in some periods of time when that's not been true. But generally speaking, it's the UMP. The left front is 10%, and that's basically the former communists. Their presidential candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon for the presidential election did very well, but they didn't get many seats. They only got about 10. The Modem, which is a center party, it used to kind of be from what the Nouveau Centre is, center wing party, center, I guess it's center wing, but a center party. They're affiliated with the UMP, but since 2007, when its candidate Francois Bayrou didn't endorse the Nicolas Sarkozy for the presidency, between round one and round two. The Modem has it's been independent, it's been center independent, but quite honestly, in France, that doesn't work very well. As you can see, there are only two seats, and basically, it comes from another party that did very well and was used to and actually won the presidency in the 70s. So it's kind of gone down. French kind of do not like the center unless you're aligned mostly with the right. The National Front got two seats. This is what's called the extreme right of France. It got two seats. Both wins were in a three-way race. Neither of their candidates got more than 42% of the vote, but they won because that's the way it is in France. If it's that you can have three candidates in a race, and in the second round, whoever gets the most, that's the winner, even if they're not a majority. And the turnout was 55%, which actually for France is very low. So what does it mean? Well, it means that the PS or the left has most of the power, and I would say probably almost all the power, except for the Conseil Constitutionnel, which is kind of like the Supreme Court, but it only deals with constitutional issues, laws basically, if the law is constitutional or not, and that's kind of people there are appointed, and they've been appointed by right-wing presidents, but it's an independent body. It's generally speaking neutral. But other than that, if you take the presidency, you take the legislature, you take the towns, the big towns, you take the regions, and you take the departments, and it's all controlled by the left. Or the left has a majority. The right had their worst loss since 1981 when Mitterrand was elected president. But what's interesting, though, is basically what happened is the reverse of what happened in 2007. When basically, if you look at 2007, the results in 2007 and the results this year, basically the UMP the Socialist Party, they've changed places. Basically, what the one side got in 2007, the other side got this year. Basically, which is kind of a logic in the way it is in France, is that whoever wins the presidency then wins the legislative elections, which happen about a month later. The FN is in the National Assembly, or the Parliament, the legislature, and that's the first time since 1986, and they have two candidates like we just saw. And tradition held, this is kind of what I was talking about, is that in France, generally speaking, what happens is you have the presidential election, and then a month later you have the legislative elections, and that is kind of whoever wins the presidential election wins the legislative election. It kind of carries on. There's not really a divided government with the French call cohabitation. That kind of that doesn't happen. You elect a president and then you give him or her a majority in parliament. These are the important dates. So the parliament meets on the 26th. When it will elect a president. It's kind of one of the first things when America would be the speaker. So it elects a president, and the question is who's it going to be? It could possibly be a woman. July 2nd, and that's when they have the Cour des Comptes is going to come up with a report. Basically, it's a audit of the books of France. Basically, to say how much money there's left, etc., etc. Because it looks like France has to cut a couple billion from its budget in the next couple of months because the growth has gone down, so they're going to have to cut the budget. And so this is kind of, I believe, it's going to give the present government political cover to make some cuts and do some things that are probably going to be very unpopular. July 3rd, and that's when the Prime Minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault, gives his speech. Basically, he's going to lay out what the government will do for the next 5 years, because the Parliament's been, like the President, has been elected for a 5-year term. So basically, what's he going to do for the next 5 years? What's the direction of the government going to be? What are the priorities? Basically, he's going to lay that all out. But I'm guessing because of July 2nd, with the report coming out, there's probably going to be a lot of bad surprises. There's going to be a lot of things that are not very good, so they're going to have to take that into consideration. But I think that's kind of planned. 2014, those are when the next elections are. They're the municipal elections. France, because the parliament and the president both have the same term and they're both elected about the same time, it's not going to be like it is in France, like it is in America, where you have midterm elections. The midterm elections are municipal elections in 2014 and regional elections in 2016. And generally speaking, tradition is that the party in power, so the socialists, will lose those elections. That's kind of the way it's been working pretty much for the last 10 years, 10, 12 years. All right, who lost? These are kind of some of the names of the people that lost. Ségolène Royal, who was actually the socialist presidential candidate in 2007, she lost. She's the president of a region in Poitou-Charentes, and she lost in La Rochelle, which is part of that region. She lost to a dissident socialist. She's a socialist, but she lost to another socialist who was actually thrown out of the party and basically pressured to leave or to not run for election, but he did, and he beat her pretty bad, actually. Francois Bayrou, he was the presidential candidate. He's actually been a presidential candidate about 3 times. He got about 10% of the vote, I believe, in this last presidential election in 2012, and he lost. He comes from the center right, but he's changed over the years. He's trying to create. He's the one who runs Le Modem, basically trying to create an independent center, but that doesn't usually work in France. And he lost his seat that he's had for a long time. Marine Le Pen, she's the one who runs the Front National, what's called the extreme right in France. She lost, but just barely, in the north of France by about 117 votes, I think. She came very, very close to winning. The FN, the Front National, that now has 2 seats in the parliament, which is actually, they've had none since 1986. So when there was proportional representation. Frédéric Lefebvre is probably a name you're not going to hear. He actually was a minister, but what's kind of interesting is he ran for parliament in North America. France, for the first time in their parliament, will have representatives from French people who live overseas. The expats can vote. They not only can vote in the presidential election, but they can vote for their own representative. And Lefebvre lost. He's UMP right wing. He lost to a socialist or a green, I can't remember. So basically, North America has a socialist or a left-wing representative. I will leave you with that, and thanks for watching, and see you next time.